Welcome, book nerds, to the Marriage Stories podcast. I'm Bradley.
And I'm Bekah.
And if you're here looking for marriage advice,
all we got is couples that read together, breed together. For today's episode, we are going to review our top 5 plus honorable mentions reads of the first quarter of 2023.
We did this a couple weeks ago.
Actually, last week of March.
A month ago, yeah, you're right. On Instagram Live, and that we thought we'd do it here too for posterity's sake.
Yeah, so a lot of the times that's how I get my TBR way higher than it should or needs to be, but it's really fun to listen to other people's top reads and go through your list and be like, ooh, that one sounds good. Ooh, I want to read that one. Or it could help move a book that was already on your TBR up sooner or introduce you to new authors. So I just really like to do these recap or wrap up type things.
Right, I think they're a lot of fun, and I'm excited to share these picks. Before we get started here, what are you reading right now, Bekah?
Currently, I actually just finished The Bodyguard by Catherine Center that I talked about last time.
Oh, yeah.
And it was good. I would give it a 4 out of 5 stars. It wasn't anything crazy complex. It was predictable. But you know what? We have, as a Bookstagram society of romance lovers, discovered that the reason why many of us love romance so much is because it is a good anxiety calmer to read something you know is going to end exactly the way you would hope it would. And so it does. And the romance is between a female bodyguard and a famous actor. And that was good. And now I have moved on to Remarkably Bright Creatures, another one that was on a lot of people's top lists from last year that a lot of people are shocked that I have not already read. As previously mentioned, I read anything with creatures, animals, wild, like in the title. And it is from the POV of an octopus and a janitor. So that's like all you need to know. That's just, I'm on board. I'm on board. What are you reading?
I am currently reading Once and Future by Kieran Gillen, and Dan Mora does the art in that one. It is a graphic novel series. It's completed, it just finished either this year. Basically the premise is it's a different take on Arthurian and British tales. So all the Arthur myths end in, and he will return when the Britons need him most. Well, what if that wasn't a good thing? And it kind of goes from there. And it's really, really good. It weaves in a lot of classic British stories. So it weaves in Beowulf and Robin Hood and lots of other things. It's a lot of fun. I'll be doing a review soon. I read the entire 29 issues available on Comixology Unlimited, and issue 30 is not available on there.
Update. I know you're going to talk about your comic club here in a little bit.
Yeah.
But what if you did this for your comic club? Because I feel like I haven't seen much about it on Bookstagram, yet it seems like something a broad audience would love.
I'll probably do it in the future, though.
Oh, once in future?
Once in future. I'll probably do it after I've had some time to sit on it and I'm ready for a reread of it. But that's a good segue into my comic book club. I'm going to be starting a comic book club through the Marriage Stories podcast here. And you can message me on Instagram at Marriage Stories Pod or at Books, Boards, and Brews if you want to join. What we'll be doing for the month of May is Frank Miller's classic, The Dark Knight Returns. Anybody's welcome to join if they want. It's a classic for a reason. It's very well done. I'm excited to reread it. It will be my second read of it. So I'm looking forward to it.
And along the same lines, if you have a book that you would like to suggest for a podcast buddy read that you would like to do along with us or just hear us do together and talk about, also send that in our inbox.
So do you want to go first?
Sure. My honorable mention, or sixth place.
Yeah, for me it's book number 6, but it can be an honorable mention
Well, I
for
mean,
you.
it's the same thing. If it's top 5 and then 6 is your honorable mention.
Is it? Because I view an honorable mention as, this is a book I want to make sure to talk about, but it's not as... It wasn't as good as these, but it's definitely one that sat with me.
Well, isn't 6 not as good as 5?
Yes, but it wouldn't necessarily be 6.
So other books on your list would be 6 over your honorable mention?
Probably.
That makes no sense to me.
Well, my
Anyways,
rating's an enjoyment. Like, a couple years ago, I did my top 10 of the year, and an honorable mention was A Clockwork Orange. It would not have been number 11, but it's one that sat with me and made me think a lot, so it's an honorable mention.
Okay. That's fair. I just feel like most of the time in competitions, it's first, second, third, and then honorable mention, and that honorable mention is the one that just wasn't quite as good as third, but better than everybody else.
Well, this is my rating system, so I can do whatever I want with it.
Agreed. My honorable mentions are kind of funny. They're for you parents out there. It is Weenie and the Pancake Problem by Maureen Fergus, featuring Frankenbeans. These are children's graphic novels, and when I say children, I mean like young children's graphic novels. We discovered them with our 2-year-old, and he loved them, and so did we. And I love a good children's book that parents and kids can both enjoy. When your kid inevitably wants to read them 1,000 times and you don't grumble, you know that is a good kids book.
Yeah, they're cute books, for sure. Teddy had us read them to him multiple times.
Yeah, the only reason he stopped is because you moved them upstairs.
I suppose so.
Yeah. And the Weenie is a wiener dog. Then Frank is a cat and Beans is a guinea pig, and it follows their misadventures with food. The first one is Meatloaf Madness, and the second one is Pancake Problem. And I look forward to finding out what the third one coming is going to get into.
My 6th pick, not honorable mention, is The Adventures of Mina Al-Sarafi by Shannon Chakrabarty.
I've seen so much about this one.
Yes, it was really good. I was fortunate enough to get it as an ARC through NetGalley. I did the audiobook via NetGalley, and it was really good. The voice actors did a tremendous job, and the story was fantastic too. It's got pirate fantasy, it's got a heist, it's kind of a historical fantasy too. It was a lot of fun. I really need to get into Chakrabarty's Davabad trilogy. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong. But I was very much thrilled with this book, and I'm very excited to read more of her work.
It's got a gorgeous cover, too.
Absolutely. I'm sure you've seen it. It's been everywhere, but it is a gorgeous looking cover. It was Book of the Month in, or a Book of the Month in February? March.
I'm not sure which month, but it's been very popular, for sure.
Absolutely.
I haven't read it, but I have been recommended it by you and also by some others, so eventually maybe I'll get around to it.
Yeah, and it's also the first book in a series, so
Right.
the adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi will continue. So I'm very excited to see where it goes.
mean, I'm all here for a female pirate.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah. My number 5 is one that I've been seeing kind of make a resurgence on Bookstagram lately, and that is The Simple Wild by K.A. Tucker. It is one that was hanging out on Bookstagram when I first joined about 1.5 years ago, and I will fully admit to putting it on my TBR solely for the cover.
It's a pretty cover.
It's a really pretty cover, and anything with the word wild in it also usually gets me.
Mm-hmm.
I read lots of books with the word wild in it. May have something to do with the fact that I'm a wildlife biologist. I do wildlife rehab. West Virginia, wild and wonderful. Anyways, so this book also takes place in Alaska, which is another something that you might consider to be in my wheelhouse. I like books that take place in Alaska. I haven't read as many recently, but used to all the time. I always have wanted to go to Alaska, and I like to watch shows about people buying houses in Alaska, and vets in Alaska. So when this romance that takes place in Alaska was making popular circulation on Bookstagram, I downloaded it on Kindle, but I finally got around to it last quarter, and I'm actually over halfway done with the second one right now. Really loving them. Jonah is, let me just say, the Yeti. If you know, you know.
I love how you're doing visual looks here for an audio.
They can hear my eyebrow raise.
Can they? Let us know.
I'm doing it right now.
Okay. So I see this is a romance book and it's on Instagram. Everybody has their spice rating. So what's the spice rating on this one?
It's like, it's not spicy, but it's not Neon God spicy. It's
That's how people describe me.
I'd say it's a 3 out of 5 on the spice-o-meter.
Okay. I don't read a lot of romance, so
yeah, but everybody's spice rating is different. It depends on how much spicy they've read. Like, I don't get into the super crazy stuff all that often. I'd say Neon Gods is probably the spiciest thing I've read as of late. So.
Okay. So my fifth is Ring Shout by P. Jelly Clark. It's another historical fantasy type book, and it's really interesting. The premise is, what if the KKK became monsters physically?
Like literally.
Like literal monsters, not just metaphorical ones. But it was really inventive, really cool idea, and it touched on a lot of horror fantasy, which works very well for me in most cases. I enjoyed this one a lot.
Well, and a historical fiction type thing element to it too. Then
yeah, it's pretty cool. It's set. It was a bit since I've read it, so I believe it was set at about the turn of the century, into the 19th century. Or 20th century, after the Civil War and all, and it's super interesting with how the dynamics of everything just relating to the racial climate in the U.S. contributes to this fantastical atmosphere. It's very well done. I've very much enjoyed everything I've read by Clark.
Well, it kind of makes sense because a lot of like classical fantasy is based on race wars, whether they're real or not.
Sure.
Elves versus dwarves versus orcs versus, etc. So but it could fit nicely into a fantastical element.
Yeah.
Plus, would you say that both of your ones you just talked about were historical fantasy?
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah, historical fantasy. It's not one I've seen a ton or read a ton of, but it's definitely a thing. I enjoy it pretty much, which is weird because I'm not a big fan of historical fiction. So,
which surprises me because you like history.
I think that's why I don't like historical fiction.
I see. Makes sense.
Kind of, I guess.
Well, you just want it to be what it really was.
Right.
Except when they could be monsters. Speaking of monsters, my number 4 is Bird Box by Josh Malerman. And this is one that I feel like people either love it or hate it. I when we were talking about this on our Instagram live, like somebody who joined was straight up like hating on this book but wouldn't give me a reason why. I feel like that's how people kind of are. They a lot of people say, "Oh, it's basically A Quiet Place. It copied A Quiet Place." But it was written before A Quiet Place. So,
Now, enjoying this book and after reading it, does it tarnish your view of A Quiet Place at all?
no. It's totally so. However, I mean, there's no way A Quiet Place did not get inspiration from Bird Box, or else it's really eerily similar ideas. So, Bird Box is about a sort of post-apocalyptic setting where you cannot open your eyes because you might see this thing, monster, if you will, that will drive you to go on a rampage killing people. And so the government has instructed people to wear blindfolds, put up window covers, leave as minimally as possible. Haha, this is also pre-COVID. This was actually written in 2014. So then there was a screen adaptation made in 2018
For Netflix, right?
for Netflix, and that was Post A Quiet Place, so people were like, wait a second, this just copied that. But that wasn't the case, where A Quiet Place is if this monster hears you, then you get killed by said monster. But same kind of thing, like you have to completely eliminate one of your senses to go about your way of life very stressfully. And it also follows a female lead who also is pregnant, who also ends up having a baby in a very stressful, like having to have her eyes blindfolded while having a baby because the monster is currently attacking in, like, while she's having this baby. Like, literally many similarities to A Quiet Place. So I can see where people who don't really do the research could get mad at it for that reason. But it is entirely separate. And it flips back and forth to the onset of this disaster and about a decade into it, as she escapes with her children to go and try and find this refuge of sorts. But there's also all this notes of whether or not this is really real and if it's just all controlled by the government to try and make people think they're going crazy. It's definitely multi-layered, yet it's a very short, less than 300-page book. I liked it.
Awesome. Yeah, it's on my TBR still. I need to get around to it, and I will eventually.
It's quick, so you should.
Moving on to my number 4, I'm going with Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. This was secret project number 1 for those of you big on fantasy news and the fantasy book community.
Sanderson be crazy, yo.
Yeah, he wrote really 5 books during quarantine because he had nothing else to do. And this was the first one he chose to release. It is related to the Cosmere, which is his big connected universe. So that's a lot of fun. And there are a lot of Easter eggs throughout. Now, the book itself is absolutely gorgeous. The cover work is like a leathery, cool design, and there's interior artwork. You can check out my review on it to see some of that. But it was great read. Very Princess Bride vibes. Some pirate fantasy. Kind of a coming of age. It was a lot of fun and I enjoyed it quite immensely.
I really want to read it. Honestly, the cover made me want to read it that much more. You know what, guys? Judge books by the cover. We live in a world today of the age of book talk and bookstagram that publishers and independents also who know what they're doing are utilizing the best artists to get great covers that reflect great contents. Sometimes, yes, there can be great covers that aren't that great of contents, and there can be great content without great covers. Yes, I recognize that. However, newer books that come out should know that the culture behind book media right now is to have a pretty cover. And
covers sell your books.
Covers sell your books. So I'm not a don't judge the book by its cover. Judge the book by its cover. Pick books because they're pretty, because why not? It's a pretty book.
It is. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's one of my favorites, and I'm excited to see how the other 3 turn out.
So my number 3 is a pretty cover. And I actually found via a book tour from Bookstagram, Katie and Bray book tours. And I'm so glad I found it. I have always had a love for poetry. And this is a collection of poems by Tanya and Kate Taylor, a mother-daughter duo called Why I Tell You Everything. I read this book at the perfect time. I was sitting by myself in the hospital. Well, not by myself. I was sitting with my 2-month-old son.
Now, for clarification, I did not abandon them. I was taking care of
he
our
was
older son.
He was taking care of our 2-year-old. I was staying the night in the hospital with our 2-month-old.
And we traded nights a couple times.
Yeah, it was fine. It was fine. I'm not trying to throw you under the bus or anything.
I know, just they don't know.
Yes. Well, anywho, I was sitting with him, and he was just sleeping and hooked up to oxygen and all kinds of stressful things due to pneumonia. And I just decided, well, I'll read this arc that I got of poetry because I don't feel like reading something that is hefty and long. I just want something I can breeze through, and I sat through and read it in one sitting, and I have since gone back and reread it. The authors loved my review so much they sent me a gorgeous little box that you can order from their Bookstagram that had like bath bombs and a candle and some chocolate and a notebook and all kinds of stuff. But it's not like they were bribing me to put it up this high. It was like a thank you. And I would have put it this high without ever having had any interaction with them at all. It is a beautiful anthology of poems reflecting back upon their heritage, onto their present, and into the future. Just talking about the influence that those who came before us have on where we are today. And if you know anything about me, that is a large part of what I grew up to care about and love about our ancestry. And this book does that beautifully. I love that it's a mother-daughter duo. I love the passion for family behind these words. And I love the healing that this exercise obviously was to this mother-daughter duo. And it probably is healing many others as they read it and process their own family history.
Awesome. Yeah, I know you've really liked that book and you keep talking about it. Have you... I think you've read it twice at this
point.
I
said I reread it because they sent me the physical with that book box, and the arc was just on my phone, so I really wanted to be able to reread it and underline stuff.
Mm-hmm. You're a big underliner.
And I drew in it and stuff.
I find that appalling, but I'm glad you enjoy it. I like to keep my books pristine and hate writing or anything in them, but...
So... I don't, annotate fiction. A lot of people on Bookstagram I've seen, write a lot in their fiction, and I don't have anything against that. I just don't know what I would write. I could highlight quotes that I like or something, but mostly I do it with nonfiction and poetry and things like that.
I still don't like it. It's...
To each his own. What about you? Do you like to write in books, or do you like to keep them crisp as new?
There is a correct answer.
Well, it does make it hard to sell. So should you decide you no longer want to keep a book, it does make it difficult to sell if you've written all in it, like, or even give away. Because I know we have all these books we did, like couples books together, and they have all of our personal, like, answers in them. But we don't really care to necessarily keep them around, but it also seems weird to just throw them away, and it also is not possible to donate those personal answers.
Yeah.
But, anyways.
For moving on to my number 3, I'm going with Such Sharp Teeth by Rachel Harrison. This is a werewolf novel, which was awesome. I didn't know I liked werewolf novels this much until I got a good werewolf novel in my hands. And
Well, you may not like werewolf novels this much.
Okay.
You like this werewolf
I like
novel.
this one. And I really like Rachel Harrison. Since this time, I have read her other 2 novels. And I'm very excited for her new one coming out this year in September, I want to say. It's called Black Sheep. You should check it out. That one's a cult one, I believe. But,
yeah, I've since read one of hers and am currently reading another, and I love her writing.
she's so good. She takes horror mixed with, like, feminism, and it's really weird combination, but works so well.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm enthralled by these books. These cats are the worst.
Bradley keeps having to pause it like 10,000 times because they want to come and scratch on a scratch pad. And I see, I think he should leave them in because it adds character. And again, all book people love cats.
I bet we can find one person out there that doesn't. And
They don't know it, but they love cats even if they say they don't.
They don't want the picking at the scratch pad to be hammered into their ears.
I understand, but
Their weird chirps are
their
enough.
weird chirps and hacking on hairballs.
Is plenty.
So did you finish with your third one?
I don't know.
Such
Sharp Teeth. Rachel Harrison. Great book. Pick it up. If you like horror at all.
Werewolves,
if you
feminism.
like werewolves. Even if you don't, give it a read. Her books are, I'd call them kind of horror light. They're not super scary, except for the return is pretty darn scary. But her other 2 I've read aren't super scary. But they are horror. They have those moments.
They have jump scares.
They do.
Which is, I think, an accomplishment for a book because it's more difficult to cause that sensation without a picture.
Yeah, I agree. So yeah, it's definitely a good one. Check it out if you haven't.
So now we're on number 2.
Yes.
My number 2 is Tomorrow, Tomorrow, and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. This book deserves the hype, which is often not the case sometimes with books that are like widely every major media lists #1 book of the year. Like I think it was obviously Book of the Month's Book of the Year. It was Amazon's Fiction of the Year. It
beat Lessons in Chemistry on Amazon, I thought.
Oh yeah, Lessons. It was several
up
things
there, I'm
top
sure.
of the years. Lessons in Chemistry was my best of the year last year, but and I think the reason why is because it is so all the emotions. So it follows 2 friends, and there's where it makes itself distinct from most other books like this. They never date, and it makes it clear from the beginning, even the description on the back of the book, that this is a story of friendship and the power of creativity that comes from that special bond, and that bond and how it changes and morphs over time, how friendships ebb and flow, how friendships are infected by romantic relationships, by changes in job, by lies, and by life. However, the big backdrop behind this book is the gaming world. And I am not a gamer by any means of that. I don't have anything against games. I've enjoyed games, but I do not consider myself like a gamer. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be a gamer or into gaming culture to appreciate this book or appreciate the references. These two friends are game designers, and that is their passion together. And really, I know that doesn't sound super exciting. And that's why I didn't pick it when it came out as the book of the month that month, because I was like, oh well, okay. And then once I saw everybody talking about it, of course I had to get on board with the hype and see if it was worth the hype. And it was very good. Probably will land somewhere on my top 10 at the end of the year. It after I finished it, Bradley and I went on a walk with our kids down the block, and all I did was just want to talk about the book because he had finally finished it too, and we talked about why we felt certain choices were made for certain characters and what we liked, and it's a good discussion book, good book club book, I would say. Yeah.
I will reserve talking about it because you might be hearing about it later from me. My number 2, I'm going with one I heard about from an arc and just thought, I'll give it a shot and see how it is. It is episode 13 by Craig DeLuise. This book, I was not prepared for. It is I'm using quotes here, found footage type book. Similar to Blair Witch Project or something in a similar vein, where these
Lost tapes.
Lost tapes, yes. If you got that super niche reference, kudos.
You're our friend already.
Yeah. But it's very interesting. It follows these ghost hunters who are trying to prove or disprove via science whether ghosts exist or not. And they got this TV show, and they go to a haunted house, and really weird stuff starts happening that they cannot explain. And I read this via audiobook, and it's a full cast production, which was really good. A lot of times those are hit or miss. This, it really worked for me.
Didn't you say Amina was also full cast?
No.
Oh, you just said the voice actors. So.
Yes. It had 2 POVs and used 2 voice actors.
Because I was just going to say, there's 2 books that had a full cast, but no.
Right. For me, it's just really hit or miss on a full cast, and they nailed it this time. And it gets weird, which I loved. It goes from this, it's a creepy haunted house, to existential horror. And it's fantastic. I very much enjoyed this one and would definitely recommend it to any horror fan. Just check it out. It's worth it for sure.
Okay. My number 1 book. Unlikely Animals by Annie Hartnett.
Like platypi?
Yes. Oh.
Or camels?
Okay, neither of those things were in this book.
But they're unlikely.
But they are unlikely.
Or octopi.
Are camels really that unlikely?
Have you seen a camel?
I mean, yeah, we used to own one.
Right. They're weird.
Okay, anyways.
I'd say that defines an unlikely animal.
Unlikely Animals by Annie Hartnett is every genre. It is often described as genre bending, so I can't quite pigeonhole it, but if I had to...
Hold that pigeon.
Put that pigeon in a hole.
Do it.
Nobody puts that pigeon in a hole.
Do it. Put that pigeon in a hole.
Okay, I'm gonna pigeonhole it. And where does that saying even come from? I think we might need a deep dive tangent.
Oh, gosh.
Anyways, if I had to pigeonhole it, I would say that it is historical fiction with a dash of fantasy and I don't even know. You can't pigeonhole it. You can't pigeonhole
I
it.
was just about to say, you are not doing a good job
No,
of
I'm not
pigeonholing
doing a
it.
good job. I'm not doing a good job. And that should just speak to the greatness of this book. Annie Hartnett is able to make it everything, which real life is everything. There's magical realism in it as well with the animals of it. The premise is it is a small town and a girl who left said small town to go do big, great things and attend medical school on the West Coast. Comes back home, she's dropped out of medical school. She seems to have lost her ability and drive to heal people. And she returns home. The final straw was her father is dealing with early onset dementia and is struggling, and she is returned home to kind of be with him throughout his final days. And everybody she thinks is going to be disappointed in her, but she discovers through a substitute teaching job, through weird animal adventures with her crazy father, through watching her brother heal from addiction, through community coming together to try and fight the opioid crisis, through not giving up on a best friend who seems to have gone missing. Oh yeah, so there's like a mystery too. And also sentient ghosts in the community that can influence things that happen, but also are mostly just bystanders for a POV. It sounds so weird. It's so good. And I just related to it a lot because I too have had deer in my bathroom.
And sentient ghost people?
No, thank you. But I too have had deer in my bathroom, had to stop my father from bidding $10,000 on a camel at an auction. And, have rehabilitated foxes and other things of the like. So, honestly, I just think he was misdiagnosed. He wasn't crazy. He was just a crazy animal person. No.
That's its own diagnosis.
It really is.
Now, this is another one that has a pretty cool cover, I think. It's just got all the
Just
little
the
foxes.
little foxes, yeah.
It's simple, but I like a simple cover sometimes.
I like it too. And honestly, my friend who doesn't read at all picked it out for me for my birthday and did an amazing job, because I think she just picked it out for me because she's like, oh yeah, animals in the title and foxes on the cover. Rebecca will like this.
Win-win.
She definitely got it right, and I want to read Rabbit Cake, the other book by Annie Hartnett, as soon as I can get my hands on it.
Rabbit cake?
Yes, and it's coming of age. Like, just add one more thing that I love.
Oh my. So is that like a crab cake?
I don't know.
It's a little hollandaise?
You'll have to buy it for me so we can find out.
Oh, okay. So I'll go with my number one pick, which has already been talked about at length.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin.
Tomorrow times 3.
I really enjoyed this book. It was... I agree. I went into it the same. Not really sure. I was like, I'll see how it is. I've heard it's really good. And I was just blown away. I'm not much of a gamer either. I'd say more so than you, but
Sure.
still not really. And it was just really great. A really, really well done contemporary, just general fiction. And I don't read a lot of just general fiction, and really enjoyed this one. I was blown away by the character. The characters were the best
It
part.
is very character driven.
You immediately fall in love with these characters and are
They are so
invested in their
human.
story. They absolutely are. Just an all-around great read. Deserved all the praise it got last year, and I'm sad I'm late to the game, but I very much enjoyed it.
Well, we hope that you've found some books that you can add to your never-ending TBR pile, and or that this reaffirms your choice in a book currently on your TBR and moves it on up so you can tell us what you thought.
We are always here to enable book buying.
Especially from your local bookstore. Shop small, y'all.
Thank you all for joining. Thank you all for joining us, and hope to see you next week.
Toodles.